Ethan Cole had been to many worlds before, but the planet Lysera was different from anything he had seen. From the window of his small transport ship, the entire city looked like it was made of gold. The spires rose high into the clouds, their sides covered in strange glowing symbols. Sunlight reflected from every surface, making the whole place shine like a jewel in space. As the ship lowered toward the capital, he could see huge statues lined along the main roads, each one carved into the shape of ancient warriors. The air shimmered with heat and light, giving everything a dreamlike look. His mission was clear and simple. He was sent as a messenger from Earth, carrying a formal letter of goodwill from the Human Council. There were no political demands, no trade requests, just an introduction. Or at least that was what the orders said. Ethan had learned long ago that missions often turned into something very different once he stepped onto alien soil. The ship landed in a large bay at the edge of the palace grounds. The landing area was guarded by rows of armored soldiers. Their armor was black with gold patterns, and each one carried a long, curved weapon at their side. They did not move, not even to glance at him, but he could feel their eyes following him as he stepped down the ramp. The ground beneath his boots was made of smooth stone, polished so well it reflected the sky above. A tall figure approached him. It was a woman dressed in silver and gold robes, her hair tied back in a tight braid. She introduced herself as the royal envoy and welcomed him to Lysera. Without delay, she led him toward the palace gates. As they walked, he caught glimpses of the city beyond the walls, streets lined with glowing lanterns, bridges made of crystal, and people in robes of deep blue and red moving quietly between the markets. The palace gates were enormous, carved with scenes of battles and victories from Lysera's history. 2 more guards opened them without a sound, and Ethan stepped into a courtyard so vast it felt like a small city. At the far end, stairs led up to the main hall. The envoy motioned for him to follow, and together they climbed the steps. At the top, the doors to the throne room opened. Ethan's breath caught the moment he entered. The hall was filled with light, pouring in from high windows and reflecting off the golden walls. Tall pillars rose toward the ceiling, each one marked with glowing letters that pulsed faintly as if alive. Lining both sides of the hall were more soldiers in black and gold armor, standing perfectly still. And at the center of it all, on a raised platform, sat the queen. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her hair was silver white, braided over one shoulder. A crown of gold rested on her head, set with a large green gem that caught the light and seemed to glow from within. Her armor was made of gold and dark metal, shaped to fit her form perfectly, and in the center of her chest plate was another green stone. Her eyes were sharp, almost too sharp, and they seemed to see everything at once. Her gaze held a kind of power that made Ethan's chest tighten. It was not just beauty, it was command. The envoy stepped forward and announced his arrival. Ethan approached, feeling the weight of 100 silent soldiers watching him. Stopped at the base of the platform and bowed, offering the sealed letter from Earth. The queen reached out and took it, her fingers brushing his for only an instant, yet the touch felt deliberate. "You have come far, messenger," she said, her voice calm but carrying easily across the hall. "Earth has chosen its envoy well." Ethan straightened, meeting her gaze. "It is an honor to stand before you, Your Majesty. I bring greetings from the Human Council." A faint smile touched her lips, though it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She gestured for him to rise. "You will join me in the Hall of Ancients. Few visitors have walked there. Consider it a gift, and perhaps a test." Her words carried a challenge, though her tone remained polite. Ethan nodded, knowing that this was more than a simple welcome. As he followed her down a side passage lined with golden light, he wondered just how much this meeting would change his mission and his life. Ethan walked beside Queen Lysera through the side passage. The walls around them were covered in more glowing symbols, shifting in slow patterns, as if they were alive. The air was warm and carried a faint metallic scent. The sound of their steps echoed in the empty corridor. Guards followed at a distance, silent and watchful. Their armor caught the light in sharp reflections, and Ethan could not shake the feeling that every move he made was being judged. The passage opened into a vast chamber. The Hall of Ancients stretched so far that the far wall seemed lost in a haze of golden light. Rows of towering statues stood on each side, each one carved in great detail, showing warriors, rulers, and scholars from Lysara's past. Some held weapons, others scrolls, and some simply stood with hands crossed over their chests. Between each statue, tall columns rose to the ceiling, etched with the same shifting letters. The glow from the columns cast moving patterns on the floor. "This hall holds the memory of my people," the queen said. "Every statue tells a story. Every name on these pillars has shaped Lysara." Her voice echoed slightly, making her words seem larger than the space itself. Ethan slowed his pace, taking in the details. The armor styles on the statues changed from one to the next, telling of different eras. The faces were so lifelike that he almost expected their eyes to move. He wanted to ask questions but stayed silent, sensing that speaking too soon might be seen as disrespect. They stopped before a statue of a tall figure holding a spear tipped with a crystal blade. The queen looked at it for a moment before turning to him. This was Alvarez the Defender. "He led our people through the first War of Shadows. Without him, there would be no Lysara today." Ethan studied the statue. The warrior's face was calm, but carried the weight of battles fought. "Your history is impressive," he said, keeping his tone respectful. The queen's gaze shifted to him, sharp and unreadable. "History is not just for pride, it is a warning. Those who forget their past are easy prey for those who wait in the dark." As they moved deeper into the hall, Ethan noticed that the guards kept their distance but never looked away from him. He wondered if they were there to protect the queen from him, or to protect him from something else. At the center of the hall stood a circular platform with a ring of low pillars. The queen stepped onto it and motioned for him to follow. The surface of the platform lit up as soon as he stepped on it. Images began to form in the air above them, scenes of battles in space, cities rising from deserts, and strange alien ships unlike anything he had seen before. "This is the Chronicle," the queen explained. "It shows the truth of our past, as it happened. Not all truths are safe to speak aloud." Ethan watched in silence as the images shifted. He saw fleets of ships clashing in the void, energy weapons cutting through armor, planets burning. Then the scenes changed to show peaceful cities, trade between worlds and alliances sealed with handshakes. Finally, the light faded, leaving the platform empty again. The queen stepped down, and Ethan followed. They walked toward a tall, arched door at the far end of the hall. She spoke without turning to him. "Few outsiders have stood in this place. I show it to you because I wish to know your mind. You carry the voice of your world, but I must see the man who carries it." Ethan felt the weight of her words. "I'm here to represent Earth, but I am also here to learn. If there is more you wish me to understand, I will listen." She glanced at him briefly, the faintest curve touching her lips, then listened well. Not all threats were the face of an enemy. Some smile and speak sweet words while they carve away at the heart of a people. They stepped through the arched door into another passage, narrower than the first. This one was darker, with fewer lights and no glowing symbols. The air felt heavier here. Sound of their steps seemed louder, as if the walls themselves were listening. Ethan knew then that whatever this journey was, it was not simply a welcome tour. The queen was showing him something important, something that could change everything between their worlds. The narrow passage led to a small chamber lit by a single beam of golden light from above. The walls were smooth and plain, unlike the grand designs of the other halls, meant like a hidden place, meant only for a few to see. Queen Lysara stepped inside first, her armor catching the light in sharp reflections. Ethan followed, his eyes scanning every corner. There were no guards here, no decorations, only a large stone table in the center. The queen stood at the table and placed her hands on its surface. A faint hum filled the room, and a thin layer of light formed above the stone. Images began to appear, maps of star systems, fleets of ships, and strange symbols he did not recognize. The queen's voice was low but steady when she spoke. "There is something you must hear," she said. "I have shown you our history, but now you must know our present danger." Ethan stepped closer. The images shifted to show a dark cluster of ships at the edge of Lysara's space. They were shaped like black blades, their surfaces absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Even without knowing their design, Ethan could feel that they were made for war. "They are called the Voren," the queen continued. "They have destroyed 3 colonies in the last year. They do not seek land or resources, they seek control. They have agents hidden among my people." Ethan looked at her, realizing the weight of what she was saying.
No?
You think there are spies here in your court? Her gaze locked onto his. I do not think, no. But proof is hard to find. Those who serve the Vorin hide well, and they have already taken lives to protect their secret. The images above the table changed again, this time showing a group of Lysaran council members in a meeting. One of them passed a small object to another under the table, quick enough that it could be missed by most eyes. The queen pointed at it. That is how they pass their orders. It's quiet, unseen. And our laws prevent me from acting without evidence strong enough to stand before the council. Ethan crossed his arms, thinking, so why tell me? I am an outsider. What can I do that your people cannot? The queen studied him for a moment. Because you are not part of our web of politics. You have no alliances here, no debts, no fear of losing your position. You can move in ways my own cannot. Her words hung in the air. Ethan understood now why she had invited him into these hidden halls. This was not about a simple alliance between Earth and Lysera. This was about survival. What is it you want from me? He asked. I want you to watch, she said, to listen. To speak with those I cannot question directly. I want you to find the thread that will lead me to the traitors. When you find it, you will bring it to me. Ethan looked back at the images of the black ships, thought of those fleets moving toward Lyserand. Maybe Earth was enough to make his choice. I'll help you, he said. The queen's eyes narrowed, as if testing his resolve. Then she gave a single nod. Good, but understand this. The enemy will not wait. Every day they work in the shadows, our danger grows. The light above the table faded, and the room returned to its dim glow. The queen turned and began to walk toward another door on the far side of the chamber. Ethan followed, his mind racing with what he had just learned. The new passage was even narrower than before, the walls close enough that his shoulders almost brushed them, sloped downward, and soon the air grew cooler. Faint sounds echoed ahead, low voices, the shuffle of boots, and the distant hum of machinery. They emerged into a hidden balcony overlooking a vast underground hangar. Below, rows of sleek fighter craft rested in their bays, technicians moving quickly between them. The smell of metal and fuel rose up to meet them. These are my hidden forces, the queen said quietly. If the Vorin strike the heart of Lysera, these ships will be our first and last defense. Ethan studied the fighters. They were unlike anything from Earth, sharp and angular, built for speed and precision. But as impressive as they were, he knew that ships alone would not win against an enemy that could hide inside the walls of the palace. As they left the balcony, Ethan realized that the queen had not simply trusted him with her secrets. She had placed a burden on him that could decide the fate of two worlds. The next day, Ethan moved through the palace with a careful pace. The queen had given him no guard, no escort, and no clear instructions. It was his task to learn, to listen, and to see what others might miss. He walked through open courtyards, past fountains that glowed with soft blue light, and into long halls filled with the quiet hum of palace life. Servants moved quickly, their eyes lowered, and officials walked in pairs, speaking in low voices. He noticed something as he passed a group of council members in a side hall. Two of them stood closer together than the rest, one leaning in to whisper. As soon as they saw him, their talk stopped, and their expressions turned blank. It lasted only a moment, but Ethan felt the change in the air. They did not greet him, and they left in the opposite direction. Ethan followed at a distance. He stayed far enough back that they would not see him, but close enough to keep them in sight. The two council members moved deeper into the palace, away from the main halls. They entered a door marked with the symbol for archives. Ethan waited a moment, then stepped inside. The archive room was quiet, the air thick with the scent of old materials. Its shelves lined the walls, filled with scrolls and crystal data tablets. The two council members stood at a table near the far wall. One of them pulled a small device from his sleeve and placed it on the table. It projected a faint hologram of a star map, but the image was so dim that it could not be seen from a distance. Ethan stepped behind a row of shelves, moving closer without making a sound. He leaned just enough to see. The map showed a region of space he did not know, marked with red lines. The older council member pointed to a spot and said something too quiet for Ethan to hear. The other one nodded and handed over a sealed case. Sound echoed from behind him. A servant had entered the archive, carrying a tray of documents. Ethan moved quickly, pretending to study a shelf. The two council members noticed the servant, closed the device, and left with the case. Ethan watched them go, his mind working fast. That case was not ordinary palace storage, it was made for secure transport. He decided to search the table where they had been standing. There was nothing left but a faint outline where the hologram had been. He memorized the star map's shape and the red lines as best as he could. Then he left the archives before anyone questioned him. That night, Ethan found his way back to the hidden balcony the Queen had shown him. She was already there, standing in the shadows, her gaze fixed on the hangar below. He told her what he had seen: the map, the red markings, the sealed case. Her expression did not change, but her voice grew sharper. "You were wise to follow them," she said. "The map you describe is not known to the Council as a whole. Only a few have access to such details, and none should be carrying them in secret." Ethan asked if she knew where the map led. She turned toward him. "I do. It is the path to our outer defense stations. If that map leaves Lysera, the Varen will know exactly where to strike." A heavy silence filled the space between them. Ethan realized the danger was greater than he had thought. The traitors were not only passing messages, they were moving the keys to Lysera's survival into enemy hands. The Queen stepped closer. "We must act soon, but not openly. If they suspect we are watching, they will vanish, and we'll have my guard track them. But you must continue to move as you have been quietly unseen." "Speak to no one of this," Ethan agreed. He knew now that his role was to be the shadow in the hallways, the one they would not notice until it was too late. As he left the balcony, he walked through the darkened palace corridors. Thinking about the sealed case and the red lines on the map, somewhere in those marks lay the first clear thread that could unravel the web of betrayal. All he had to do was follow it without being caught. In the distance, the faint hum of the city reached his ears. It was a reminder that beyond the palace walls, millions lived unaware of the danger. And in the heart of the Golden City, the clock was already ticking toward whatever the Vareen had planned. The sun rose over Lysera, casting golden light across the city. From the balcony of the palace, Ethan could see the markets waking. Merchants opening their stalls, and airships gliding between the tall spires. It looked peaceful, but he knew that under the surface, tension was building. The Varen fleet was still out there, and now that their agents had been removed, they would act. Queen Lysera stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She wore no crown this morning, only her gold and dark metal armor. "The Varen will not wait long," she said. "Our ships are ready, but war will not be won in the skies alone. We must show them we will not kneel." Ethan nodded. "What do you need from me?" Her eyes moved to him, sharp and steady. "You will go with me to the front. If we win this battle, Earth must know the truth of it. They must see that Lysera stands, and that our enemies can be beaten." Within the hour, they were in the underground hangar Ethan had seen before. The sleek fighter craft gleamed under the bright lights, their crews making final checks. Larger warships were docked at the far end, ready to rise into the sky. Soldiers moved with quick precision, boarding their assigned vessels. Ethan followed the Queen up the ramp of her command ship. The interior was lined with control stations, each manned by experienced crew. The main view windows stretched across the front, giving a clear view of the hangar beyond. The moment they strapped in, the ship lifted, engines humming low at first, then roaring as they cleared the underground bay. The sky above Lysera was already filled with the shapes of their fleet. Dozens of ships formed into formation around the flagship. Ethan could see the smaller fighters weaving between the larger vessels, their wings catching the light. Moments later, the dark shapes of the Voran ships appeared at the edge of the atmosphere. They were just as the Queen had shown him before, black and sharp, their surfaces swallowing light. They moved in a slow but steady advance, their formation tight. Even from this distance, Ethan could sense the threat they carried. The Queen's voice rang out across the command deck. "All ships, prepare for engagement. Hold formation until my signal." The Varen fleet came closer, and then the first wave broke away, heading directly toward them. The space between the two forces lit up with the flash of weapons. The Lyseron fighters surged forward, meeting the enemy in a burst of speed and fire. Ethan gripped the edge of his seat as the flagship shook under the impact of distant blasts. The crew worked in practiced unity, adjusting shields and returning fire. On the main screen, he saw enemy ships breaking apart, but also Lyseron vessels falling from the sky. The Queen stood at the center of the deck, her voice calm as she issued orders. Port flank, hold position. Forward batteries, fire on my mark. Mark. The flagship's guns lit up, sending a wave of energy into the heart of the enemy formation. One of the Voran cruisers erupted in a bloom of fire. For a moment, it seemed the Lycerons might hold the line, but then a massive Voran warship pushed through the wreckage, heading straight for the flagship. The crew scrambled to adjust course, but the Queen raised her hand. Stand firm, all forward guns, target that ship. The two vessels traded fire, the view outside flashing with each impact. Ethan could feel the deck shudder with every hit they took, but the Queen never stepped back. Her eyes stayed fixed on the enemy ship until, finally, its black hull cracked and split apart. It fell away in silence, drifting into the dark. The remaining Varen ships began to break formation, retreating into the distance. The Queen's voice carried across the deck once more. Hold pursuit, let them run. Today Lycera stands. A cheer rose from the crew, but Ethan stayed quiet, watching the retreating ships. He knew this was not the end. The Voran would return. Still, this was a victory, and victories mattered. When they landed back at the palace, the city's streets were filled with people. They cheered as the Queen stepped from the ship, their voices echoing off the golden walls. She raised her hand in acknowledgement, then turned to Ethan. You came here as a messenger, she said. Now you leave as an ally. The bond between Earth and Lycera is sealed in battle. Ethan met her gaze, knowing she spoke the truth. Whatever came next, their worlds would face it together.